start off the mover and seconder to approve the agenda for the regular council meeting of September 27, 2023 be approved. Councilor Heislip, Councilor Eastman. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda approved. Any conflicts of interest this evening, sorry? Seeing none. Okay. Let's see. Need adoption of that the minutes of the special council meeting be held on August 3rd, 2023 be approved as presented. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Harding.
I'll second.
Councilor Cornish. Any questions?
I think it was supposed to be August 30th.
No, the special council meeting was August 3rd.
Yeah.
The regular council meeting was August 30th.
Okay,
Next one.
sorry. All
No,
right.
that's okay. Any more questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Mover and seconder for the minutes of the regular council meeting held on August 30th, 2023 be approved as presented.
Second.
Councilor Eastman, Councilor Heislip. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much. All right, next up we got public delegation, MB Power Milltown project update. Who's starting off? Kenny Kane. All right. Thank you, sir.
Your Worship, council members, thanks for the opportunity to give an update on the Milltown decommissioning project. I'm Danny Kane, and with me is Bob Scott. Bob will give an update on the community engagement after my slides for the Milltown decommissioning. I'd like to draw your attention to the photos that are on the first slide. When they do come back, you may be familiar with these pictures. So the first picture is of the Milltown station when it was in the operating condition. The picture to the right of it is a rendering that we had done in 2020 when we were doing the planning and the design for this project, with a ghosting of with the station on it to give you an understanding of how that would look from a perspective wise. And then of course the picture to the right of it is without the ghosting there. And then in that area you can see that where the gated spillway is, that area is high and dry in that area. Next slide, please. So a little update. Pennycon Heavy Civil Limited, our contractor, mobilized the site in May 2024, May 24th, sorry. And after they mobilized the site, they prepared the site, and we did a drawdown of the impoundment area, and that was finished July 3rd. And then after the impoundment area was drawn down, we had both the U.S. contractor, subcontractor from the U.S. side, and our Canadian contractor mobbed the site. And the gated spillway work was done, and I'll show you some pictures of that. So the gated spillway was removed on the U.S. side, and that was completed in July 21st. After that work was done, the U.S. contractor, who was actually a subcontractor to Pennycon, Sargent, they'd temporarily demob from site, and they'll come back to site in December to finish the U.S. work once the Canadian side's done. So currently we have an earthen coffer dam that's installed on the Canadian side, and that's pushed out upstream of the powerhouse, and we're in the process of putting in cellular cofferdams, the structural steel cofferdams. There's 4 cellular cofferdams to be put in place, and I have some pictures of that. Next slide, please. So this should be a video. There should be a link on this so you can click this, and this is going to show you the earthen cofferdams being pushed out on the Canadian side. And then you can see the structure. This is a cellular cofferdam, the first structure to go in with the 4 posts on it, and then that goes into the river. So we should be able to see that if the video can go. Yeah. So the crane's moving that out, it's setting it in place, and this is the first cell being placed. Those 4 pins, after it's set in place, are anchored, and then sheet piles are driven in around the perimeter of it, and then it's filled with with earth. And at that time, after that was done, then we raised that earthen cofferdam that the crane is on now to the same level. And I'll show you pictures of that next. Next slide, please. So there's a continuation of that work. So the picture on the left-hand side where you see the crane sitting is actually where that cell was being placed. And as you can tell that the elevation of that crane is much higher than it was when it placed that structure in place, so that the earthen cofferdam was built up to a certain level, then the sheets were put in, the sheet piles were put in to enclose that cellular dam, and then filled with material and compacted to allow that crane to move out onto the pad so that they can put in the next cellular cofferdam. So this picture on the left shows that cell being put in, and then the picture on the right is showing with the sheet piles in and they haven't been trimmed off yet. The fill was going to be going in. So if you look to the right of that picture where the crane is in the far left, you can see that those sheet piles were cut off, leveled that off in that area. Next slide, please. So earlier I talked about when we did the drawdown, the impoundment, and both the Canadian and the U.S. contractor mobilized the site. This is on the U.S. side. Sergeant, they brought their piece of equipment and made a roadway down in. We have an access agreement, crossing agreement with the railway and the roundhouse on the Calais side. And you can see in the picture on the left-hand side, the excavator starting to take out the structure on the top, which would hold the valves and actuators and that would operate those gates. And the next picture to the right on the top, you can see that structure is removed and there's concrete structure still there. And all that is in the dry. And the next picture that you can see just below that is after we did the work to remove that, the intent was to continue the flow of the river down through where the gated spillway was. In order to do that, we put stop logs back in place on the Canadian side, and it was spilling both on the stop log spillway and on the U.S. side where the gated spillway was. And one thing I'll bring to your attention is in the picture on the lower right, you can see that there's a concrete abutment that is still there, and that we left that there for temporary reasons for erosion. When we do switch over the work and the Canadian side's done, this will be back to being high and dry, and when the contractor mobilizes again, they'll remove that piece of concrete that's there now. Next slide, please. A little more aerial view of earlier on when we set that first cellular cofferdam in place. You can get a little more appreciation for how far that come over from the Canadian side. You can see that the water is flowing and it's dumping on the left-hand side of the gate, the stop log spillway, and you can see that where the gated spillway downstream further is high and dry, and that's just after Sergeant had demoed from site and we're getting ready to put the stop logs back in. You can also see that from the aerial view, there's 3 distinct structures on that area. So if you look at the roof to the far left, that's part of the original structure from 1881. And then we call it Powerhouse A, which would have been units 5, 6, and 7. And then there's a red roof that would be Powerhouse B, the original Unit 4, the rope-driven turbine that everybody would heard stories about. That's where that would have been. And then the brick structure to the right, that is the structure that was put in, that's units 1, 2, and 3, that was put in 1919, 1920. And currently, and we'll show some pictures there, where we've done, the demolition is over to the point where unit Powerhouse A and Powerhouse B have been removed. The pictures on the right-hand side, on the upper one, is from the perspective of at the gated spillway looking back at the impoundment area. So you can see that was just drawn down. There's still some water laying there, but it is dry in that area. And the picture just below that is of the upstream side of the powerhouse, some flow conditions, and then the other one is the gated spillway showing the water dumping into on the downstream side of the powerhouse. Next slide, please. So an update on the project. I did go through some areas, but there's a couple areas that I referenced. So the powerhouse A and B have been removed. The finalizing that is ongoing. And I did reference the Canadian side cofferdams. The earthen side is done. Cell 1, 2, and 3 are placed, and we're planning to place cell 4 in the near future. Once cell 4 is placed, that will complete the cofferdam on the Canadian side, and then that'll allow the downstream work and the removal of the last powerhouse to be done. So overall, I'll make a note on the stockpiled material. So in order for us to do this project, to do the fish passage, there's a fair amount of material that has to be put in the river to get the right grade in order to get the fish passage. And that material needs to be brought on site in a timely manner, so that material is being brought on site now and it's being stockpiled so that once the work phase opens up to be able to start placing that, we can place that material in a relatively short period of time compared to trying to get the stuff from the pits, bring the trucking in and do that work. So on the progress side, we're pretty much on schedule, considering that we have had a lot of rain this summer. We did have a post-tropical storm, did go through, 100 millimeters of rain. We were quite pleased that from the design standpoint and the execution standpoint that we didn't have any impact on that project. Next slide, please. Okay, so the way they remove the material out of the buildings, when they went to site, hazardous material was removed, then cabling and conduit and fixtures and bus bar, all that type of material was taken apart and removed. And what remained was the units. So the way they did the deconstruction is they removed the superstructure, the top part with the bricks. When that was removed, then that exposed the units. So if you can see right here in the picture, the two excavators, one of the excavators, if you look behind it, you can see a unit. That would actually be, that'd be unit 7, I believe. 5, 6, and 7 in that area. So they opened up the area, then they took the units and pulled them out. And the same thing will happen when we go to do Powerhouse C, units 1, 2, and 3. That's what's remaining inside there right now is the 3 units, and I think the gantry crane structure is still inside there. Next slide, please. So the post-decommissioning of the contractor scope of work, will be finished in the spring for that. That will begin the fish monitoring process that's going to be going on, and that's in collaboration with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, First Nations, Canadian Rivers Institute, and that'll be setting the baseline requirements, measurement for the fish passage. Also, as was discussed in council here, the last session that MB Power was here, there was, through the environmental, the EIA process, the Environmental Impact Assessment, there was an environmental site assessment done. It did identify that, I was surprised that this is a heavily industrialized area from early 1800s, that there is some historic contamination there, and that the site is contaminated. We need to deal with that from a closure standpoint. So the site has been registered with the Department of Environment and Local Government. We have had the review done from consultants on this, on the impact of that site, and that portion of it, and the decisions for that'll take place at the time of the post-contractor work that's being done there. There's various options that are being considered. Next slide, please. So the goal for the project, for the contractor's work, is to have the multi-species fish passage in place for April 2024. So that's all in-river works done to allow for the fish to go upstream. There still will be other work that will be ongoing in that time, but it won't be in-river work. It'll be impacting the fish passage. So I'll, if you want, can go to the next slide, and I'll hand it over to Bob Scott.
Unless you want to.
Oh, sure.
When you say fish passage options, can you, like, that's not natural, then you're actually going to be creating the fish passage?
Yeah. So from a design standpoint, when we were looking at this from the fish passage, a multi-species fish passage, we're actually turning the river where the dam is now, or just downstream of the dam, into a natural, like, fish passage. So the rivers in the design that's been put in place is to get the grades appropriate, the material appropriate, and the size of the boulders and that appropriate in the right location to allow for the fish to go up and, you know, get rests in behind these boulders. The design was done on the weakest swimmer, which was picked, I think Gaspereau was the weakest swimmer that was picked. And so when you look at it on the river, it's just gonna look like a regular cascade river that'll be there.
So yeah, so I'll go back, it's not natural, but is there going to be maintenance have to be done to that over the years?
No, there will be monitoring of it, though. That'll be done, I think it's over a 5-year term, the timeframe to see, you know, from the fish passage standpoint, whether it's improving or not.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Heislip?
Yeah, great presentation. Moving forward now, I just wondered, just out of curiosity, you're putting those cofferdams in. Everything's deflected now through the old overflows, right? So that's why you can take off the first powerhouse A. How are you going to get that? How are you going to get those spillways out with?
So, I don't know if you noticed, yesterday, as a matter of fact, we put the stop logs in and closed that area off to put the downstream side. We're going to put another cofferdam, then put that whole downstream side in the dry, so the rocks will be put in the dry, and the entire river right now is flowing down where the gated spillway was. And so the plan will be is that this cellular cofferdam goes around and basically ties in to where the stop log spillway is now, your question. And that allows that area to be secure to remove the superstructure of the powerhouses and then the substructure, and then put the material down river. So then they're going to remove the cellular cofferdams, the earthen cofferdam, we'll bring it all back, and now the water's now going to be flowing on the right in the Canadian side, and now and I say the Canadian side, the U.S. it's both U.S. Canada there. I'm just using that for reference. That now where the gated spill area was is now high and dry, and that the U.S. contractor can come back, remove that concrete abutment I mentioned, and then they're going to put out their cofferdam on the U.S. side, and there's some legacy structures that are on the U.S. side from past when they built the dam in 1934, they had temporary structures and that. So there's some structures that have to be removed that are buried in the water or underneath the water now, and while they have that in place. And that'll go out to basically when the powerhouse C is today. Then they'll remove that gated spillway or that stop log spillway. That'll all be removed down to the rock level. We won't be removing everything. We're removing everything related to anything that impedes flow of water, and anything that's above ground or like in the dry area, that'll be broken down to ground level. And then they'll remove the cofferdam back to the U.S. side, and that'll be the completion of that work.
Okay, any more questions of council? I'm going to just ask you one more. I'm still thinking about the changes you are making for the fishways, and you're going to come back and monitor them. But when's MB Power like away from it altogether? And the reason I ask that is something in the future happens to all that. Who's responsible for that land then?
So MB Power owns the land. And the expectation is they'll continue to own the land as we go through this process. The decision hasn't been made on what the final outcome of that land will be.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering who will be responsible as long as you own it, you'd be responsible if the waterway gets messed up because of.
Yeah, so there's, with the requirement with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and the monitoring that has to go on, if there's a corrective action that needs to be done, we need to go in and make those corrective actions.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Greenlaw.
Just with regards to the environmental impact assessment and the contamination on the site, when are you going to be able to share the options for your remediation of that with us?
That's being reviewed now, so we can take that away and come back and let you know, give you that information. Okay.
Sort of plays into what we can and can't do with the land.
Yeah, yeah, I fully understand.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor. Cornish.
I don't know if I asked this question now or to the next one. I'd like to talk about the surrounding properties behind the school, the baseball diamond and things like that. Will that be covered in the community engagement, or you can answer questions on that now?
You can ask me questions on that.
Okay. I've been contacted by school teachers from Milltown. They're concerned that that ballpark that's in there is going to be removed. The last time the gentleman was here, he basically said it would be removed. Also, the hills and things around that area, up further, kids slide on that. They go down towards the substation that's there now. A couple of picnic tables. The big concern is the school holds a variety of programs. I'm assuming there's something like mini Olympics, this type of thing in that area. They use that land for that. And they're concerned about the contamination, and they're also very concerned they're losing their ball field, which they use for a lot of the sporting activities they have. So I've been asked to find from you people, I hope somebody's out there looking into it tonight, looking at us tonight, to give us an answer. Are you prepared to substitute or compensate for the loss of their facilities that they definitely need?
You know, I think that there's as much effort probably that needs to go into that property from a complexity standpoint as we did to look at decommissioning the station itself. That is very important to the First Nations, very important to the community. It's been a heavily industrialized area since the early 1800s. The contamination on the site that needs to be dealt with, the archaeological perspective, things that we're moving out there, finding archaeological finds as we're moving this, and then raising the needs for the school and the kids. It's not there's no silver bullet for that answer, but I can tell you that it is being evaluated. We'll go through a process of determining what needs to happen there and the best step forward. You're all aware that it did take from, we made our original announcement of this decommissioning in June of 2019, and here we're taking it out in 2023. It does take a while to go through this process in order to make sure that you do get it right. So I rest assured that, I do hear what you're asking for, and it's not an unreasonable request to ask, what's going to happen with the land. It's going to take a period of time to get to that point.
Can you give us a ballpark figure when you'll be able to give us that answer? Because we have a lot of concerned people. We got a similar answer at the first meeting. Actually, basically, we didn't get an answer, and I feel right now I'm not getting an answer. So when will we have a plan of action to, I want to say, replace the current loss of facilities that that school in that area, Milltown itself, or old Milltown, greatly need?
So I can take that away and bring that, and then be able to hopefully provide a feedback back. I don't have that answer for you tonight, though.
Could you give us a time frame on that, please?
A time frame on when I can come back and give an answer on when the time frame would be?
That's correct.
Okay. I'll take away for that. Okay.
Okay. Any more questions, council? Oh, that wasn't so bad. All right. Floor is yours, Bob.
Thank you, appreciate it very much.
Bob.
I'm Bob Scott, I'm Director of Government Relations and Stakeholder Engagement, and I deal a lot with mayors, and Alan and I first got together actually the first announcement on the decommissioning was actually 51 months ago today, on June the 27th of 2019, actually. And I remember talking to Alan more than once that day, and we had some interesting discussions over the time. But Anyway, it's, and Councillor Cornish, we'll get that answer for you sooner than later, I promise you. But there's certain things that obviously we have to wait on with respect to the EIA to find out what's in that ground type of thing. But we do not want your school or anybody else is using the lands down there to have to go beyond what they would normally be expected to do. But that's probably going to be at least be next spring before we can give you 100%, and maybe beyond that. Depends how soon we can get it done. But hopefully we'll do it as quickly as we possibly can, and we'll report back to the mayor or yourself, Councillor Cornish. We won't have to wait to come to council to do it. We'll give you an answer as soon as we possibly can. Okay. Anyway, so next slide, please, Jeff. So just to give you if you never heard of a community liaison committee, NB Power has 5 or 6 of them. Beldoon, Mactaquac, Point LaPro, Colson Cove, and here, and there was others that we had previously in Dalhousie, for instance. We always have them in conjunction with, we like to have community people come to join our community group so that we can get input. Like, there's very few people from NB Power who live in St. Stephen. But obviously, actually we have a councillor here who used to work for NB Power. But anyway, but all to say to you that we always wanted, so we got a number of people, and I think I even vetted most of them through you, Mayor McEachran, and so we had about maybe 18 people on the committee, including some of our own, when we first had our first meeting on March the 16th. And I remember that very much so because we were supposed to come down here to meet that day, and that's when all the world came to an end as far as COVID, and we had to have that meeting online back in Fredericton, and most of the people got joined online, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, all to say, we have these so we can get local input forth, because we promised that when the dam was decommissioned, that we would provide the town and the First Nation with basically an amount of money, and I'm going to cover off another slide, but I'll just go through it now, up to $1 million for a project or projects that would be called either heritage or legacy, whatever you want to call it, that the town would be happy. I think one of the things that we were told is that we don't want any more plaques and we don't want any more monuments, and I think we're in full agreement with that. We want to find something that the town would say, hey, this is we lost our dam, and now you at least have done something to basically say, here's a heritage project that we can remember it by, type of thing. So we've had, like, Sean was on our committee, Jeff was on our committee for a while, Councillor Heislip has been on, is still on our heritage committee, and we've had 30 meetings overall since March the 16th of 2020, and also 23 meetings of the heritage committee. Sometimes we'd have them back to back. Anyway, all to say that we've got a lot of input from a lot of people, a lot of local members, and anyway, so if you go to the next slide for me, please, Jeff. So, like I said, we've total budgeted of a legacy project of up to $1 million, and what we really would like to do, we need some collaboration from the town, from the First Nation, and some of the members of the current CLC who would get together on a regular basis till we finally find the project that was going to fit everybody's wants. And it may take months, may take whatever amount of time it takes. We'll take the time to get where we need to get it to, okay? Anyway, so basically what we're looking for is to provide something valuable for the Milltown community, the First Nations community, and the town of St. Stephen. So anyway, so if you go to the next slide again there, please, Jeff. So these are some, not all, of the projects that we have looked at over the last 23 meetings that go back to April of 2020. And so basically, there you see them up there. There's some that do not meet the goal that I just told you about. There's one that does not mean it has to be the one. It could, that's why we want to continue to meet with people from the community, not necessarily as community liaison committee, but members of the community liaison committee, town, and First Nation, so that we can get a project or projects that everybody's happy with, and then we'll make the decision to go with that. So basically, that is, I made the recommendation that I'd like to have some members of council or just of the town preferably at least one member of council though, would be on the specific committee to find the final product that we could go forward with. And that's basically the end of my presentation, but I'll take on any and all questions that you have.
Yeah, oh, Bob, this is the first I'm seeing this list with the boxes checked. And I'm surprised to see energy efficiency for the Garrison Civic Center, because that's one of the things we discussed, and actually you guys even supported us getting those numbers and data, so why'd that jump off the list? Be my first question.
Yeah. I think, I'll be truthful with you, that some of those that do not meet the exact goal does not mean that we can't work with you on it separate from the type of thing, okay? Like, I mean, Keith, who was the CEO at the time, and Lori, who was the senior vice president at the time, and is now the current CEO. I mean, we would definitely work with the town on anything that has to do with this particular building for energy efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. We might even be able to do that outside the project itself.
Yeah, and I was kind of looking forward to that, and possibly having a generator, so to speak, because we talked about that, even working in conjunction with NB Power to supply power back to the grid when you needed it, and supplies the housing for storms and stuff like that. So yeah, any other questions from council? Councilor Harding?
Thank you. And anything that, well, I haven't seen anything on there that the Milltown people really want, but I would think that the big lion's share of any money or anything that's being passed out, Bob, would go to Milltown. Because that's where we're losing. We're not losing anything here in St. Stephen, we're losing it in Milltown. So I would hope that if there's a, like the Milltown activity group, we want something, not very expensive, but we want something. And I would just hope that you would keep that in consideration while you're doing that. Thank you, Bob.
Everything is still technically in consideration. The one that lands right on the line is the one that we marked off there, type of thing. But I want you to understand that this isn't the end. This is just the beginning, as far as I'm concerned, of finding this magical project that we can use, that everybody will say, oh, that was a great decision by the town, First Nation, and NB Power, because that's exactly what we wanted. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Councilor Heiss, oh, sorry, not gonna, Councilor Greenlaw.
Yeah, so the $1 million you're talking about, that's separate from the remediation of the property, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the only thing I'll say up front is
Shit,
that
sorry.
Power is not going to cut a check for $1 million. I mean, the project has to come back. Now, there's magical other ways that we can work that out too, type of thing. But what we want is we want something that the community can say, hey, we like this, we want this, and it works. And it may be more than one project. It may be a major project and a minor project. Whatever you decide. That's why I'm saying we will come back down here and meet with you at any time that you want, whether it be prior to a council meeting sometime, just any regular day. We'll come down until we get to this point. So you say, well, I could see where you took that off, but we really still want to talk about this. That's what I'd like to see. Maybe somebody from the town itself, maybe a councillor, and then somebody from First Nation and 2 or 3 of our members, if that's okay.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Wheaton?
Okay, I was not part of the Legacy Committee and so on, but where you have, it meets the goal and does not meet the goal, do we just have one goal that it has, or is there a variety of goals that?
Well, we didn't kind of put a mission statement, if you want to call it that, and I'll read it for you one more time. To provide something valuable for the Milltown community, the First Nations community, and the town of St. Stephen. So that's, we have been meeting at least a couple of hours every time we've met over that period of time. And you have community meetings. Kathy Halstead, Kim Reeder, Abby Pond was on there for a while. David is still on their committee. Elizabeth's on that committee. So, but again, I just wanted to make it crystal clear that we have no intention whatsoever. This is not done and finished with. We want you to tell us exactly what you think you need, and then we'll decide with you whether that's possible or not. But we have the money, you have the idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Heislip?
Bob, I said I wasn't going to put you on the spot, so I'm not going to, but because I was just going to say to go and review the goals, actually, which she just asked you that question. But the other thing is, somebody brought up a really good idea, and I just thought of it just before you came up, and it's not going to put you on the spot or anything. They were saying, like, wouldn't it be nice to have some bricks from that building as a fundraiser? And that might be something that we could, a joint thing we could do between the museum in Milltown and the Milltown Activities Group. To sell these bricks, because I mean that's been there for almost 200 years, right? And I never thought of it, and then all of a sudden you tore down the oldest one part of it. So now the newer part's the one that's left.
I wish that we could take credit for this, but actually somebody beat us to the punch, was Suzanne Little. So we have already agreed to give her a number of bricks. Actually, it's not us; it's the company that's doing the work. But they have agreed, I believe, that they will make them available. Correct? Yes. So it's and I think Darren McCabe is also interested in doing something too, type of thing. So we have to leave it with the company to determine how many of those bricks can actually be given away and what kind of shape they're all in, type of thing. But no, I mean we're quite willing to entertain anything along those lines for sure.
Great. Somebody brought that up actually up in one of the basketball court up there, or the tennis court, and they said, "Geez, wouldn't it be nice to have some bricks?" And I said, I keep on forgetting to go and talk to you, so I just wanted to make sure that was on your radar.
It seems like a great idea. And then it seems like, but why would you do that? But like Suzanne Little is actually the one who came to us and asked us for them, type of things. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions of council? Nope. Geez, you're getting off. That wasn't too bad, Bob. No.
Thank you very much. If you want us back in any time, we'll back in. If you just need an answer to a question, please call, okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Okay, any comments from our public? Okay. All right. Yes, I did. I do that a lot to Jeff. Mover and seconder for the report of the Chief Administrative Officer and acknowledged and received. Councilor Wright.
Second.
Deputy Mayor Wheaton. Any questions? All those in favor? Okay. The floor is yours, Jeff.
Thank you, Your Worship. Busy time in the CAO's office. Probably the biggest change, as the report starts with, is the arrival of Ms. Caswell as the executive assistant. Already making huge progress on a lot of things that were sitting on the corner of a desk for a long time, getting some filing things caught up, and we're working on getting some training set up over the next bit to bring her more into the fold of day-to-day, but early results are very good. As indicated in here, did attend a meeting with Minister Austin and found some of that information quite interesting. Policy work, I know the committee of the whole saw the results of a lot of the policy work that's been going on. That will ramp up now with the executive system in place to help with the editing and the proofreading and things that I can, once the original ideas are down, shift over, and we're creating a system for going back and forth. Obviously, the big challenge of this reporting period was the arrival of hurricane / post-tropical storm Lee. Want to take a moment to commend our staff that were on the ground through the teeth of that storm's arrival. Fortunately, it didn't hit us as bad as we might have otherwise expected, or as bad as we were prepared for. But it did. They worked commendably in harsh conditions. while some of us, like myself, got to stay at home and work and run the alertable system and work on the launch of that program and trying to keep our public informed of what we were facing and how we were addressing issues as they came, keeping them advised of dangerous situations while our crews were able to get around and rectify those. As noted in the report, we issued 22 advisory alerts through that weekend that resulted in 23,360 individual notifications going out, majority through the app. But there were people who took advantage of the email, text messaging, and direct phone calls aspects of that, which was really good. We've seen our numbers continue to grow. They grew very quickly over that weekend, as you can understand why, with the push that we were going to be using it. But it's continued to grow slowly after that as well, as we continue to feed the system with less critical stuff and more informational opportunity things. For instance, we put the household hazardous waste day at Hemlock Knoll for our friends at the RC. And so we're trying to keep feeding that system with information, trying to figure out the line between keeping people active on the app and not bombarding them too much. But we're still working on that. We're still doing install of that program. Actually, just a few minutes ago, I got an email from the service provider about some changes to the templates and stuff that we had requested, and so we're still working on that. So we'll get better, and we'll. But I think it was a good test run, and I think it went quite well. I've certainly got some positive feedback from users of the system, and in fact was asked to do a couple of media interviews post hurricane about the rollout of that system as well. The finance summit that I was scheduled to attend was rescheduled. Goods and bads to that, I guess. I was looking forward to getting to have that conversation, but we've come to learn that it was rescheduled with the intent of making a more robust conversation when we do actually sit down. G&B needed to retool, I think, their approach to that meeting. So we're looking forward to that. Municipal reform transitional costs. This was the submission to the government for reimbursement of costs. That work was completed. We did put in a submission for just over $64,000. I've been in conversation with the department over the last couple of days. About $3,800 of that has been removed from our application. It is eligible for reimbursement potentially under a different stream of funding, but they are pushing ahead with I'm told, with the roughly just over 62,000. We're hoping to get final approval by the end of this week or next week on that, which is a lot of those costs are the technology and stuff that we're using in this room today. So it's good to have be able to pick those costs back up from the transitional fund. And finally, I will be leaving on very early Saturday morning to attend the International City and County Managers Association Annual Conference. It's an association I've been a part of for roughly a decade, and it's a large, very large conference, usually about 4,000 delegates. And the theming of this, as you can see by the sessions that I've already kind of selected from a wide swath of educational opportunities, are on point for some of the struggles and challenges that our community is facing right now. So I'm very much looking forward to going and learning with my colleagues on new approaches to things like housing, homelessness. It's you see that it's not a local issue. It's not a Canadian issue. It's an international issue, and we're all struggling. All communities, different sizes, are struggling to take on these. Again, I think I said before, in the industry, we call it a wicked problem because there isn't an easy solution. You can't just throw money at it. You can't just throw, people, staff time at it. It takes a big effort. So it's a great opportunity. It'll be a great opportunity to learn and bring back knowledge that the Community Safety Committee, which now is up and running, and council I can share with the learnings and hopefully put our own spin on some tools and solutions. So it's always a great event and a great opportunity. So I will be away of the office for a little bit. The deputy CEO will be around and have my coordinates to get me by phone, text, email, whatever we need, and the business of the community will continue, of course. But if you are looking for me, I'll be in a different time zone, so there might be some lag time there. But I will be around and learning lots over those 3-4 days.
Any questions, council? Councillor Greenlaw?
Yeah, that's all some great stuff. So when you come back, can you give us a report and maybe share the materials so that we can all benefit from it?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, a bunch of the materials I think will be loaded in my phone next little bit. The conference has an app that they push a lot of their materials right into your app, so you can carry it around in your phone. But yes, anything that I can get my hands on, I will definitely bring back for sure.
Councillor Eastman?
Yeah, on the transitional cost, so that covers rebranding, everything that we put in money for that stuff?
It's actually the rebranding part that is being redirected to a different stream of funding. They have a promotional and branding stream that they've now set up. This is specifically related to things like the technology, the extra iPads for the extra counselors, and things like that. So like even we had tried to put into this application the new Center Ice logo because we had to redo that, and my indication from the department is that they're willing to pay for it. I just got to resubmit it under a different heading and put it into that stream. So we are covering all those bases. It's just the first batch was legal type issues for costs incurred for asset transfers and the corporate seal and things like that. The next phase was this kind of stuff, and then this other phase is branding, getting signs and things like that done. So we're working on all three elements as they come available.
Thanks. Councillor Heisler?
Yeah, the alertable, great. It was what timing that was. It was just perfect timing. I mean, I've seen it all over Facebook that people were, but I think that it was a little difficult to get the email and the actual texting down. It was just a little bit confusing how to do it, and that's why maybe most people are sticking with the app rather than sticking. It might be a little bit of educational thing to do with that. Now, mind you, I had my phone on airplane mode, so I couldn't get the text message to go and confirm the confirmation code to go and put it back in, but I could do it by email quite easily, and I did it. But I think other people were confused about, because there was only a box in the corner that you had to click on for texting. But I'm sure we haven't rolled this out yet, so I'm sure there's all kinds of educational opportunities there for getting people to that point, right? But it was really
great feedback. Thank you. We didn't get to do the rollout we wanted to do, obviously, because we wanted to do the best we could during the storm. There is some more educational stuff that we're working on. As far as most people getting it through the app, that is great news from a cost perspective, because the three things that are monitored that we talked about at Committee of the Whole, I think it was, are the emails, the text messages, and the direct phone calls. We paid for the package. Again, not expensive. $650 a year for 25,000 notifications is not bad. Last time I looked at the dashboard, from the start to the end, we had sent through the storm and everything. We had sent 1,800, I think, that were in the metered category. So it's not bad. But we do have the dashboard that we get to monitor that and see how we're doing. But yeah, there's definitely some more promotional and educational rollout stuff that we have to do, and we're still working towards that.
So we talked about how well the community liked it. How did staff like the app? Did it work out okay? Like it didn't hinder efficiencies?
Through the storm, I can honestly say 100% of the alertable stuff was being coordinated by me personally. We had a system between the deputy CAO and myself as he was managing the crews on the ground. They would advise him of what we were dealing with, and if it warranted an alert because it was going to be it was either dangerous or it was going to be a long-term issue, we were communicating mainly by text messaging, I think. So, I mean, as far as the communication side, it worked really well. you know, like anything, if comms went down, if cell phone towers had been lost, we would have lost some efficiencies there, obviously, as we would have struggled to communicate, which is true in any situation. As far as getting the alerts out, the system is very well designed. It comes with a lot of preloaded templates for the majority of the situations we dealt with, whether it was a falling object. You know, we had a dangling traffic signal. Yes, they didn't have one that said dangling, but they had a falling object warning, right? So we could put that out. The crews were great about sending photos, which I think one of the things I liked about loading the photos directly into the alerts was we were hoping that it would reduce the number of looky-loos, that we would say, oh, there's something neat, let's go check it out, because we're saying, here's a picture of it. You can see it right here on your phone or whatever. Stay home, let the guys do their job. So, you know, we had a great setup as far as getting communications back and forth, knowing when to take alerts down. And it really, from my perspective as the one loading the alerts and stuff, it was not overly onerous. You know, I could do that while still talking to Sean about other issues that we were dealing with. So overall, I think from the administrative side and the you know, the behind the curtain side, it's worked probably better than I expected, and I had no complaints.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions of council? CEO report? Seeing none, okay. Okay, mover and seconder to move into the CAO report. Councilor Heislip? Councilor Cornish? All those, any questions? Or I can do that after.
We did the CEO report.
No, deputy CEO. Oh, you did that too? No, okay. No.
You just
Did I-
repeated it. You said go read the CA report.
Oh, sorry. All right, I'm looking at deputy CEO. I just didn't come out of my mouth, I guess. So yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Thank you, Your Worship. For protective services, the fire report covers the period from August 23rd to September 18th. We responded to 33 alarms. That's, I would say, a little bit above average. The storm contributed six alerts to that, so if you back those out, it would probably have been a typical month. Those 6 storm-related calls were 3 NB Power-related things, trees on lines, arcing lines, things like that. 1 tree that had fallen on a house, and a couple of alarm activations when you get power bumps. So nothing serious at all, really, from a fire department perspective, though it did keep us busy. The other activities we had going on, of course, we did the Bucket Sit fundraiser. People would have seen us up at the Superstore there for the 3 days. That was another successful event, like every year that we've done that. And we're still bringing in donations that are trickling in, but overall, a good result. So thank you to everybody that contributed to that, whether it was, you know, the 10 cents rolling around in the bottom of your coffee holder or a check for $2,500 from a local business. It all added up to a big amount, like it always does. So thank you again. As far as my activities, nothing too much there to highlight. Spent a fair bit of time working with Amera, getting ready for pipeline emergency responses as well. I had some forms to do for ERG related to that, and also there's some other stuff that I'll talk about in Public Works. I would like to comment a little further on the storm response. As I mentioned, we didn't have a lot of major calls, but our guys were ready and available. The fire hall had lots of people around. Deputy Chief Nordstrom, of course, headed up that part of it. I, too, worked from home, which made it almost better in some respects. if you're in and around the fire station when things like that are going on, it's very chaotic, people coming and going, and it's hard to focus on what you're doing. There's a lot of distractions, so working from home eliminated a lot of those distractions. That being said, if communications had gone down, then of course we would have had to come to town and probably set up in here and send out smoke signals or whatever you got to do to get those messages out. But everything, I agree with the CAO, everything went well. I would like to thank all of the firefighters that came out and gave of their time, despite whatever was going on at home. A lot of them would have had power out and things like that, and we do our best to make sure our loved ones are looked after, and then we walk away and leave them. And that's always on our minds, so I appreciate what the firefighters did for us. Also, I too had my new assistant, Melanie Nielsen, start this week. So she's already helping me, like Jeff, get things off the corner of my desk and setting the groundwork for some other more larger projects that we need to get taken care of. So that's going well, and very glad to have her. As far as bylaw enforcement goes, not a whole lot there that I would need to speak about. Typical stuff, and the same with building inspections. Not a whole lot to add there. I'm sure Alex will touch on that stuff in his report. I think I've got anything else that I really wanted to highlight as far as protective services go. So before I move into infrastructure, if anybody wants to question anything about protective services, I guess I'll take those questions.
Councilor Wright.
Thank you. I just have two questions. One is your item 13, instruction of hazardous materials. Is that something, I just think that's pretty great. You're going to be teaching a course on behalf of is that what that is saying, that you're teaching the course?
Yes.
Cool.
I've been an instructor for the Fundy Firefighters Association, which is the fire departments from Harvey to the Musquash. Been an instructor for many years. I had been the coordinator of all the instructors for most of that time. I recently stepped away to focus more on the instruction side of things. Hazmat is not one of the ones that I would typically instruct. It's not an easy one to instruct, but the instructor that usually does that wasn't available, so I stepped up to do it. It's long and dry. It's 40 hours of. It's a tough one, but we're getting through it. We're about halfway through. Once that's done, I'm hoping to be able to move on to another. There's a bunch of courses that are needed, and that's one of the reasons I stepped away from being the coordinator, is because a lot of the courses that are needed, there's very few of us that can teach them. So I think my energy is better spent teaching, and somebody else can coordinate. Thank you.
So that's great. The last question, I think, was, I think it's still on. The last question was under Assist General Public, and I'm just curious. Number 5, it must be raising pigeons. Not raising pigeons.
And bylaw.
I honestly thought it was racing pigeons. I was like, lucky pigeons, how do you raise pigeons?
Well, I think it is racing pigeons.
It's racing pigeons.
I think it is. I didn't ask a lot of questions, but there is such a thing, so I think that is what it is.
Okay, I didn't know if it was a misspelling or if it's the same. Okay, I got some research set out for me. I was just curious. Thank you.
Any more questions that can beat that one? No? Okay. All right. I'll also continue on.
Thank you, Worship. I'll remember to push the button this time. Infrastructure. Well, like every month, Dave gives a list of activities that they did. And of course, this is a reflection of August. Nothing too much in there that I really want to highlight or talk about, unless anybody had questions. But we are continuing with asphalt. Unfortunately, as I mentioned in my report, we do have to go to St. John to get it, which adds to the cost and the time associated with doing it, but we're doing our best on days that are fit for asphalt. So you'll probably see the crews out around, hitting our priorities. And again, as far as the storm response goes, can't say enough about the Public Works crew, and in particular David Beach for everything that they do. Dave, I know, his power was out for over 30 hours, and I had to send him home, force him to go home a few times, only to have him come back. But that's the dedication of our crews, and we're fortunate for that. To elaborate a little bit more on your question with respect to how did the staff deal with the alertable and all of that. It was a little bit of work at first to get them used to stop before you fix the problem, stop and take a picture, send me a message, tell me what the problem is, and then so we can get that out. And they got in the rhythm fairly quick. For a while, I was getting bombarded with stuff that I had to triage and say, all right, no, just deal with that. It's going to take us longer to get out the alert than it will take to deal with it. So we did have a few comments about maybe a tree here or a tree there, but I mean, if we pulled up and pushed it off to the side of the road, that's not worthy, right? So, so there was a lot of that. And then once we got through that phase, it was, okay, now you got to send me notifications that it's been resolved, so we can take the alerts down. So they, that it took a little bit to get them into the rhythm, but they were good about it, and they understand the importance of it, and they're getting on board with this stuff, even though it's a little bit not old school, I guess we'll put it, but it's the new stuff, and we'll bring them into the 21st century, myself included. So I just want to thank them all for stepping up to help make Alertable a success, because without their information, we wouldn't have had anything to put out. And again, for being there to help the community in their time of need, regardless of what was going on at home. No, I do have, I didn't have it in my report because I didn't have it at the time, but just some project updates. The King Street Plaza, I'm not really involved with that a whole lot. That's more, Kev's kind of been supervising over that, but we're working through some deficiencies over there. Union Street, coming along good. We're hoping to see, the work for this year being done by the end of October. They're doing curbs and whatnot now. The underground infrastructure part is done. We'll see some asphalt, the base layer. That should all be in place before the end of October. And the same with School Street. We're about the same place. The underground work has been done. So now it's restoring the road, getting curbs, manholes, and all that stuff put in place. And again, that's looking like, late October, they should be out of here. And then in the spring, they'll come back and put the sealer coat on the asphalt. So those projects are coming along. That's it.
Well, Sean, I'm going to take an opportunity to thank you and your crew, and I might as well get you in this one too, Jeff. Thank you for that. It's good for the public to see what the crew has to do during a storm, right? So even though it might be a little bit of painstaking, but people will appreciate them even more, right? And seeing all that great work. Also would like to, actually you both too on this is thank you for helping Blacks Harbor out with their water situation. That was very kind and a good neighborly thing to do. And thank you for releasing a couple guys to go up for the day and help them out. And yeah, that's all I got. Any questions from council for that report? Deputy Mayor Whedon?
I guess the mayor got ahead of me because I was going to thank you, and it's just totally impressive how much work is being done, because you've also done a lot of other things, your regular job, and of course the storm was on a weekend, so it took up your weekend. So I really appreciate what you do. And then with the alertable, it always takes me time, and I have to do it over and over again before I can figure it out. So this was a good practice. I think I have it under control. And my daughter said to me, "But Mom, it's so loud." She said, Yeah, she says, you know, and it's, but I said, but it's good. It won't be as often. So now when there's a message, I do, you know, I've tuned into it. But again, we really appreciate what you're doing for us and the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions, council? Okay. Okay. All right. So I had a mover and I had a seconder. No more questions. All those in favor of accepting the Deputy CAO report? Any against? All okay. Motion or report accepted. Okay, a mover and seconder for the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission MD Planning Report. Councilor Harding, Councilor Eastman. Sorry, Alex.
Thank you, Your Worship. So on the September 20th, the PRAC met to consider a variance request for 99B King Street. So this is the old St. Stephen Inn building. And the proposal there was to allow for a 30-unit apartment building with smaller suite sizes than the bylaw stipulates. So they were doing smaller, like bachelor units, as opposed to your traditional one-bedrooms. So they needed a variance on the unit sizes in that case. That was approved by the committee, and I'll just reference this later on in the report in terms of what that would do for housing supply. In addition, this month we're recommending that council adopt a fees bylaw for particular miscellaneous services that are different across the municipal district right now. So fees for variances, zoning confirmation letters, and so on. So there's a bylaw in there in your package for you to consider, and that would harmonize the fees across the municipal district. It's basically the fees that the former local service districts were paying for those services, but applying it in the town site as well. So there's a bit of a gap that's left from local government reform. So this kind of harmonizes it across the municipal district. With regard to building permits and development permits, there's a total of 63 building permits that were reviewed for zoning and sent to the building inspector to be issued, and 33 development permits that were issued. The total value of construction for permitting that we have put through our office is over $4 million for the municipal district. 18 zoning confirmation letters or documents for registry that were reviewed or sent out. 6 zoning variances or terms and condition applications approved to date. 5 sign permits in the year to date. And 14 different subdivision applications approved to date, which means 19 new lots have been added to the municipality. So year to date, there's been 26 net new dwellings that have been permitted. So that includes things like apartment units or basement suites or backyard suites, in addition to your single detached homes that are typical. And this is across the whole municipal district. But with that variance that was approved, when that building permit's issued, and I believe that still needs to be issued by the building inspector, when that permit's issued, that would put that number up to 56. So that's getting quite good in terms of high number of new housing units being built. And this is across municipal districts, so not all in the town or in the former local service districts. So it's rural and urban new housing units. So good numbers coming in.
Thank you, Alex. I'm going to question on the fees. When you do put the fees, where does the money go?
So yeah, that's a great question. So the money would go right back to the municipal district. So what I can do is can come up with a calculation how much your fees have been to date. It basically it's money that you're supposed to use in your budget to credit the cost of the service. And so sometimes if you're getting a lot of development, you're planning services, or if you're doing building inspection with RSE, those things can actually be almost paid for by the cost of the permits that come through the door, because we don't keep any of the fees. They just go back to you.
Did I see a question to my right here? Yeah, Councilor Greenlaw?
Just to be clear, these were always in place in the former LSDs. Now it's going to apply to the whole municipal district. Now, were there any changes to the rates from what they were before, or are they just more or less sliding in?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there is changes, but only for the former town site. So the former town site used to have zoning confirmation fees of $25. It's now going to $100 with this new bylaw, should it be adopted by council. But that's what the rural areas and the rest of the province, that's very typical, $100 for these. They're used in the cases of buying property, need a confirmation of zoning for lawyers and other things. So it's worth it. That's not it's not an insignificant service. So making sure the fees are comparable across the province and also harmonized within your municipality, I think, is very important.
Any more questions of council? Councilor Heislip?
I do have a point of order, though. We seem to be voting on every one of these reports. Usually we do all reports in one thing. So I just for the benefit of our new hire, she's getting kind of confused back there.
This is the way it's laid out here.
No, well, I think that all reports are under one.
Yes, they are.
Right?
Yeah, they are. And thank you. Yep. And it's dragging things on longer too. So no, I appreciate that. Thank you. I was feeling it, but not quite sure what was going on myself. So thank you. And my mic's on. Good. Any more questions? All right. Thank you, Alex. Community Services Report. Kev.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try and keep this as short as I can then. Some of the items on in my department's report are they are covered across the cross section of the departments. The example being the GCC pool deck. It's included in mine, it's included in Aaron's, and it's included in Jeremy's report. So just to update you in case you didn't get a chance to see the pictures or go and have a look. The tiling is complete. We're waiting for it to cure. There is some other change orders which still to be worked on. And then, of course, there is some significant cleaning because of all the dust that was thrown up in the air with removing that much debris. So we are looking kind of tentatively of the middle of October 16th as a week, but I will. We can put an alert out just to let everyone know when we are getting very close to opening. And staff, as you know, we've been asking for lifeguards for a while now. We're ensuring that they're busy as well, even with the Milltown pool closing a little bit earlier than we'd hoped. We ran it to just before Hurricane Lee came along, which we were pleased with. It was getting cool, but we were still able to offer warm water at the time. But sadly, that was one of the casualties of the storm that we had. So in regards to that project, it's going well. The everything is in place for the anchors. We're getting a disability lift added as well. So we're pleased with how that's going. In regards to the Plaza project, as the Chief mentioned on King Street, there is good news in the sense that the sign has been ordered. We should be seeing that back in place in 5 to 7 weeks. I'm hoping it's 5. There are some deficiencies which I have mentioned for the last couple of months, which we are waiting for even options if we can take on electrical contracting ourselves. We're just getting communication from the contractor is not always easy, and that's not just from us, from Dillon Engineering as well. So fingers crossed we have better news for you next month. Everything else, as I mentioned, affected by the storm, we got off relatively lightly. I think the worst park that was affected was Dover Hill. We've lost about 3 trees in there, and the ground is still quite saturated for us to go in and with our excavators and to haul those out. But that is one of the jobs that we have to do. As Jeremy mentioned in his report, we met with the new librarian last week just to go through kind of communication channels and work on some things that they've identified. So that's a positive from Jeremy's department. Another one which I don't think we got it in his report because it happened so recently is that Blacks Harbour lost their their arena, and it's only just getting close to opening again. In the spirit of helping our neighbours out, we gave them some of our ice paint, so they were able to get that. It takes a while to get here, so they will return that once their order's in. But that's another positive from our point of view. The grant administration, Councillor Heiss will be pleased I got that in today. It was 14 pages of lots of information, so hopefully we're successful in that. We should hear back in the new year about that, so we'll keep you posted on that. One other positive from the storm, we didn't lose power at the Civic Centre, which is huge considering you may have heard of the wedding that took place. We were on standby to send the public home and have the natural light get through the ceremony, but God wanted that wedding to take place, so it did. And yeah, as you heard, it made the news, and we're pleased for that couple. And then just the last other piece, there's other things I could mention, but we'll keep this short and sweet. We've got some fitness equipment donated from Horizon Health as well as part of the cardiac rehab program, which is always good. But yeah, there is lots of things always in community services, and you think it quietens down, but now we're getting ready for Christmas, and we've got fall pickup as well coming. So when we get details of that, we'll share that with you too. So.
Thanks, Kev. That's one thing I was going to bring up was thanks to Jeremy and his support group for even helping, like, just the thought process of trying to figure out what was going on there and with their humidifiers and stuff. So I, again, appreciate what they did for Blacks Harbour and rest of the communities around it also. All the people chipped in, so it's good to see people helping our neighbours out. Yeah, any questions, Councillor Eastman?
No, I when I was reading underneath the airport, reviewing the Canadian aviation regulations and stuff, has there been any plan developed yet to replace that building out there?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Through your worship, our airport attendant has been good enough to share with me some quotes he acquired for a replacement building out there. As I indicated to him, it'll be part of the capital budget discussions with council. I made no promises to him of where it falls, and I did tell him that the capital money is a competition between roads and water and sewer, and new parks and everything else that gets put in that category. So we do have that in the budget file for review, but at this point, all we can do is present it to you fine folks for deliberation when we get to that point.
Okay. Councillor Greenlaw?
Yeah, a couple questions on the pool deck project. Looks like we're not too bad schedule-wise, but how are we with budget, right? Because I hear change orders, okay? And then the second question is the Legionella testing. Is that something that's new? And if it's new, was it budgeted?
Second question. My apologies. Second question first. Yes, Jeremy, with his contacts, he's actually serves with Rec NB as their facility management board, and they got wind of this, so it was budgeted for, and yeah, we're all prepared for that, so we're good there. In regards to the budget for the pool deck, yes, we knew that there once you crack anything open, that there's potentially risk. We are way under budget. There's room there, and we're good to go. So we should be plain sailing.
Okay, Councillor Islett.
You took away one of my questions, but thank you for applying for that, putting that submission in. And if there's anything that this group can do, there's pretty good people on that committee. So if there's anything that you hear of, or if there's something through Sports New Brunswick, I'm sure that they'll collaborate with the town in submission of any grant applications if you see anything come across your table. Dog park, I've been up to dog park. I was up there today actually, and that's being well used. I don't know if there's the bags are going to be put out or not. And the other statement that somebody said was, it's pretty muddy getting in there. I think it's probably now because there's been no vehicles across there in the years, and now that we're driving in there to mow and everything, I think it's getting the trail muddy. Even if there's a trail on one side with a little bit of crushed stone, if it happens to be in the budget somewhere, that's probably for Public Works though too. But if you can see that, if you see anything there, or even just some fill or something, just to get it raised up a little bit, so that'd be great. Because my dog gets dirty anyway, but then he runs out and goes through the mud the very last thing before he jumps in the car. And there's 2 other people there were saying the same thing. So, but it's been well used, I think. But some people have seen comments that but you have to be there at the same time. There's 12 hours in the day you can use it, and you just don't happen to be not there at the same time as other dogs. They don't think it's being used, but it looks like it's being used pretty well.
Any more questions or comments from Council? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. I do just have one question under the 6 King Street, the oldest basketball building. There was 2 bullet points there, and the second one is my question. It said called by counterforce a few times once again. I'm just curious, what is counterforce, and what is the call for?
That building is monitored for security. So it's just the monitoring company, and Jeremy has been out with one of the members of the volunteers from Canada First. The building was secure. It was one of the kind of outer buildings that was affected, and RCMP were there to assist. So, yep.
Okay, that's all I was wondering. Thank you.
Your worship.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to follow up on Councillor Greenlaw's question about the pool deck budget situation. Just another little note on that project. Recently, some supplemental gas tax money became available to us, and one of the conditions was we had to assign it to a project. So we assigned that additional money to the pool deck project in order to get the cash flow coming in. So there was an unexpected buffer built into that program. We're not expecting to have to dip into it, but it's there. And then when it doesn't get used, I'll go on a ledge and say we'll be able to reassign it to a future project. But we did get some additional money through gas tax that has been assigned there.
Yeah, thanks for that. And just a little comment on the wedding. Thanks for your team pulling that off and turning it into another international story again. That's our second big wedding in St. Stephen. We did one with the COVID wedding on the wharf for the 2 families on both sides of the border, and then we did Hurricane Lee wedding. So keep her going, guys. That's all good. Thank you. All right. Next up, Treasurer's Report. Tim, please.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. I'll go through, make a few points on my report. As far as staff activity, we're in the process of doing the water bills or utility bills for the period of July to September. And one of the things we're working on with the utility department is actually using some new technology for reading the water bills and actually entering the water bills into our accounting system here. So we're hoping that'll bring some efficiencies in time and cost with that. It's been a bit of a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge, but we're working our way through it. And actually, a few of my staff are actually going out tomorrow with the person that's reading the water meters just to see that side of it on it, so that, because there's always been some questions what's happening out there, because there's 2 parts to it. So they're going out tomorrow with the utility person to see how their meter readings are actually being done with the new process that they have. We've been updating the payroll software for the new retro pays. that came in for the union and for the management staff, and working on the retro pay calculations for the union staff, which is a big job, going back 6 or 7 months, going through all the timesheets and doing the changes for the retros for the union, because there's a lot of rates and a lot of little peculiarities with the union contract. But that's coming along well. They're doing a good job on that. 2022 audits in progress. The auditor was here yesterday working on that, so staff's been working on that. 2022 annual community building fund reports, that's the gas tax reports, the other name for it. I was away last month at council working on that, but since that's been submitted and we've got approval for half of the money to come in, and I expect the other half hopefully be here by the end of the year. That's around $331,000, and that'll be the last payment for this round of the gas tax. Capital projects. We've been busy with the 4 major projects that are going on, the project accounting for that, for the Plaza project, the Union Street project, the School Street project, and the pool deck project. So that's been taking up a considerable amount of time, and plus the ongoing other projects that we're dealing with, tracking, remitting, insurance costs for the wastewater treatment plant fire. As I mentioned, the remote water meter reading project, dog park project, and the Canada First basketball project. As far as the statements of revenue and expenditure, you've got it in the package there for the general operating fund and the utility operating fund up until July 2023, 58% of the year. Of course, the expenditures don't always flow as well as revenue exactly at 58%. It's showing a surplus right now at the end of July in the general operating fund of a little over $903,000, and showing a deficit right now in the water and sewerage operating fund of $161,000, but that should turn itself around once we send out the next set of water bills at the end of September. And finally, for the check register for the month of August 2023, showing bills paid of a little bit over $2.2 million. And that's it for my report.
Thank you, Tim. Questions of council? Council Greenlaw?
On the capital projects, would it be possible for us to have, like, we've got the list of them there, and you've got where the funding comes from, but would it be possible to say this one's in progress, and this is, we're 25% along, and we've spent 27% of the funds? Is that possible to get it broken down into that much, or is that too complex? Just so we know what the status of each of the capital projects are.
If you don't mind, maybe I'll take a look at that and see what I can put together for maybe some more information on those particular projects.
Okay. Any more questions or comments of council? Oh, Sean?
Yeah, I kind of missed it earlier, but finance was done first.
Okay. All right, so thank you, Tim. Next up is Future St. Stephen Economic Development, and Ian's not with us this evening. You've all seen the package. Have you guys got any questions on? I was going to tell you to talk to him when he gets back, but we'll see if we can answer it, though.
This is pretty broad anyways. Are we winning on this friggin' hotel thing?
Good question.
Are we making any headway pushing this rope up the hill?
I really have nothing to add to that. No. I don't think anyone does.
Is there any way of getting provincial support and pushing this rope up the hill?
It's been asked many times. Yep. I know you see it in other areas, but I was told hotels weren't in the program, but then I saw some recently. But yeah, noted. Oh.
Yeah, the only thing I would ask there too is the meeting with the landlord. I just wanted to know how that went, and that was the landlord that's, we have some properties that have fallen into disrepair, and she's from out of the province. And I think it says in his report that they met and I just wondered what the status of those properties were going to be, or I don't know what he can say or what he can't say, and it's probably something that he can't say because it's, that would have been my question to him. So I don't know how we can relay that to him.
Go ahead, Jeff, you got some comments on that?
Sure. Without getting into people's personal business affairs, what I can say is since the owner that we've been working with has re-engaged with local officials, the lines of communication are open. Obviously, action's more important than words when it comes to these things. But the positive side of it is, and not just with Mr. Williams, with Mr. Morton as well, from different angles and different issues, the particular property owner has been responsive, which we know wasn't the case not that long ago, and we continue to work on that relationship and try and achieve improvements where we can under the legislative restrictions that apply to us. I know it's a bureaucratic answer, and it's not what you want. It's not the details that anybody would want to hear, but there is an open line of communication now that didn't exist before.
Okay. Yeah. Councilor Greenlaw.
I just noticed in there, we pay Service New Brunswick fees for accepting utility payments. Is that really worth doing? Would we be not better off to say pay here or pay there, or we're not paying somebody else fees for collecting water and sewer utility bills?
Yes, we are doing that. We pay a fee to Service New Brunswick right now for payments up there, and we've discussed that about possibly doing something different, even getting rid of Service New Brunswick and not going through there. But currently, we're still doing that, and I guess the best I can say is it's in discussions right now on it. So.
Okay. Councilor Wright.
I just noticed in the Future St. Stephen report, there were two things that I highlighted. One, and under business growth, some support for a company that's planning to relocate here. So I just thought that was good news. There's a lot of bad news you have to deal with as council, but that one's pretty huge when I was reading it. I was like, that's great. So Future St. Stephen's definitely been a benefit, and I'm liking what I see there in that part of the report.
Yes, I'm looking forward for that, but that's, like I said, it's going to be up for them to make that announcement. But I will, I'll put some kudos and thank you out to Karen Ludwig. She's the one that pointed that in my direction, and so she's still thinking of our community. And then I'm looking forward to Ian getting one of those wins. So, yeah. So, okay. All right. Right. So, future. Okay. Had a mover and seconder for all. What are we doing now? No. No, I got to stop now. To accept the departmental information reports that we received. Okay. Okay. And all those, any questions on all the reports? More? Well, this is the time.
Just to show on the wastewater treatment plant that burnt, where are we with the insurance claim? Yeah, sorry.
Not much further than we were the last time you asked that question, in all honesty. We had a meeting today. We're trying to get that rolling a little bit better. I do have some information I can report that I just got on the blowers. We signed the contracts to get those production of those going, so they're about 7 months away now. That's what it takes to build them. We won't have a building ready, obviously, by then. I've got to reach out and find out what's leading to the delay as far as getting new plans to replace the structure. I don't know if I commented on this last time, but basically what we've done is taken the as-built drawings for the original building and and have asked to have those brought up to the current codes, and that's kind of where it fell apart. I know the consulting firm that the insurance company engaged with, there was some back and forth on the proposal, some changes were made, and now we're waiting for the insurance company to come back and say, go ahead and do that work, and that's what we're currently waiting for.
So are we at a point now where we're not using diesel anymore? Are we still using diesel?
No, we're not using diesel.
Okay.
I thought we might have to during Lee, because we were down, it was touch and go. That was one of the last things to come back on, and I was getting a little nervous, but anyways, we made it through that.
Okay, and the last question is the water systems audit. And you talk about reviewing that and actions that have come out of the water systems audit. What is it and what actions have come out of it?
There are some environmental things from a historical incident that happened out there some years ago that need to be resolved. Our consultants are coming up with a plan for that. We've got a few little things to do as far as security. We got a couple little fences to put up. Nothing too serious. Trying to think if there's anything I'm missing major from that. It's a few little things as far as storage of chemicals and things like that. There's nothing in there tremendously worrisome, I don't think. I'll take another review of that because I'm kind of at a loss. I'm trying to remember all the things that were in that. But the big one was the historical environmental thing, and our consultants are working on that.
Yeah, so I was just worried about like lead pipes, different things like that. There could be legacy issues, but that's no worries.
Nothing like
Good,
that.
good, thank you. I'm done.
Oh, that's all good. Okay, so done with the questions. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Report's accepted, thank you. All right, next up, bylaws. Need a mover and seconder for the Community Planning and Development Service Fees Bylaw, proposed resolution. Councilor Harding, Councilor Heislett. That council requests the written views of the Planning Review Adjustment Committee, PRAC, and gives first reading to the bylaw by title. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried, thank you. All right, mover and seconder for bylaw to regulate the use of public parks, first reading, proposed resolution. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Eastman?
Second.
Deputy Mayor Wheaton? That the bylaw MDSS-23 being the bylaw to regulate the use of public parks be given first reading by title. Any questions? Councilor Eastman?
I had mentioned this before. Does the cenotaph fits in here at all? Because it's not listed. Yeah.
Just one sec.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the intention was, or the interpretation was that it fell under 14, which is you can't damage anything in a park. And since the cenotaphs exist within a park, like the cannon is in the park in Milltown, for instance, I think that was the interpretation that staff had when they were reviewing it. But I think there was also comment about an artifact. Didn't we have it in the definitions, artifact or something? Maybe that was a previous draft. Maybe it was a previous draft. Okay, never mind.
Okay, so, and you heard what I said, it's covered under 14, but
We can amend it. In this, for second reading, we can do an amendment before second reading, yep.
I was gonna say, because if we're not specific enough, and we take this to a court of law for something,
No, not a problem. We'll happily make that amendment for you before second reading.
Okay.
thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Wright?
Jeff's hanging his head. Number 6, no person shall hold a public gathering that negatively impacts upon the normal use and engagement of the park or meeting in a park unless authorized by the chief administrative officer or their designate. I do understand and agree with what's trying to be done. For example, just, there was a wedding on the wharf. It's going to stop other people of the town from using the wharf while that event is going on. So I understand that you want to be able to have some parameters for that kind of thing when it's going to be closed off to the general public for using something for an event. So I get where this is coming from. I totally agree with it. And so that there's not two things, one person assumes they're going to be able to use a place and then show up and somebody else is already using it. So I kind of get it. But I just think that that negatively impacts upon the normal use is just a little too subjective. So I prefer, like all the other parts, where it's just very cut and dry. So my suggestion would be, or my beef with it would be, that it's just too subjective the way it's worded. And if we're trying to talk about scheduling events, then it would be simple enough, I think, to say that when a part of the resources of the town wants to be set aside or reserved for a private event that will restrict access to that place by the rest of the population, that reservation shall be made through the office, rather than having something subjective. Because my worry is, and it's always been, and we talked about this in committee, the ability for people to use the public spaces and just get a group together and go sit and chat in the sun or whatever. So, or have protests, for example. So if a protest, one protest we might agree with and think, oh yeah, that's not negatively impacting anything, but what if the next event maybe rankles us a little bit, and so because it's creating noise or a crowd, we want to use that negatively impact. So because of the subjectivity of the phrase, that's my only beef with it. So that's my comment.
Okay, so really, is there a simple amendment we could do to that as well and keep the flow of this moving?
Or I could just be a lone dissenter, which is fine with me as well. It was just my thoughts on the way it's worded.
Can't you approve amendments though?
What's that, sorry?
Can't we approve with amendments?
Yes, we can, yeah. But we have to have one, we have to have one to add, though. We gotta add it to satisfy the question. But that'll be a council decision as well, so. I think Joyce is correct that it's not intended to do what it could do, and it would never do it, but it's nice to have the wording. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Just a thought. If council were to see fit to pass first reading, I could work with Councillor Wright directly to work on a proposed amendment for next council. That could be, then we can get the wording, rather than trying to wordsmith here in this kind of environment, we could work on an amendment together that could be presented before the next reading. That would move.
Yeah, because they're not crazy amendments. It's just a little tidy. And you're going to add that one we talked about, number 17, that doesn't exist?
No.
Okay.
I think that
We are aware of that.
Okay. All right. Okay. I didn't want to steal your thunder. I just know we talked about it.
No,
Okay.
I just wait till.
All right. Okay. So, any other questions about? Yes, Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to know who's going to deal with number 5, where it says no person shall pitch a tent or park a trailer or do anything like that? What happens every day? There's a tent parked up in the Milltown Park up by the bandstand. So who enforces this and what's going on there?
Well, enforcement officers, but that's the whole idea of this. The bylaw is to be able to give them some teeth to be able to deal with, our citizens and stuff. But do you want to? No? Yeah. If you got anything to add there, but yeah, go ahead.
As you correctly indicated, without that clause in there, we can't do anything. The level of enforcement, the level of service being provided is a question for council to set that level of service, and that will be a budgetary discussion, I have no doubt, because it's been a conversation the entire this first year of your term about bylaw and enforcement activities. So I fully expect there'll be a robust conversation at budget about what your level of service is going to be in that regard.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. Okay. All right. Any further questions? All right. So I had a mover, I had a seconder. We went through questions. That the bylaw MDSS-23 being the bylaw to regulate the use of the public parks be given its first reading by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Good discussion, everybody. All right. Now we got some requests for some decisions. We'll start with, I need a mover and seconder for the library board renewal of term. French K. Okay, Councillor Heislip, Councillor Harding. The council approved the renewal of the library board member Kendra French for a 3-year term. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Mover and seconder for library board renewal of term, Lindsay J. Councillor Heislip? Councillor Greenlaw? The council approved the renewal of the library board member Jane Lindsay for 1 term. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Mover and seconder for CAO annual performance review process policy. Deputy Mayor Wheaton.
Second.
Councillor Harding. That the council approve the CAO annual performance review process policy as presented. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Mover and seconder for minimum property standards ad hoc committee. Councillor Heislip, Councillor Eastman. The council approves the creation of an internal ad hoc committee for the purposes of preparing a recommendation to council with respect to the creation of a bylaw regulating the minimum property standards of the municipal district of St. Stephen. Questions? Yeah, Councillor Wright.
Thank you. I just have one. There's option 1 and option 3, and I'm not trying to nitpick at all. I'm just wondering if one was left out that we should be aware of, or if it is just a typo and it should have been 1 and 2.
Just a typo. When 2 was deleted, it didn't auto-correct the 3. Nope, that's fair.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. It's good to get that one going. That's a good one. All right. Correspondence. The following items be acknowledged and received from Charlotte County Hospital Foundation Radiothon. Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Wheaton. Councillor Cornish. Any questions? Councillor Wright.
It's not a question so much as a comment. I was seeing on the news the other day of one of these machines at the St. John Regional Hospital, and what a benefit it's been to the people receiving treatment, the gals especially, who feel it a little more keenly perhaps when they lose their hair. And it's just, it was just kind of coincidental that I saw this in my agenda package, and then when going through the news, I saw that article, and I just think this is really great that they're trying to do this. So not so much a question, just a comment.
No, that's what the client's for. Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Wheaton?
I guess. Would this be the place where we would offer to make a donation? Because that's taking place next week.
Council could entertain a motion.
Yeah. What's the will of council here? I mean, we've been donating every year, and as Joyce says, it's, or Councilor Wright, it is a great cause. It benefits everyone in our community. I myself support it. And is there anyone that doesn't want to move forward with that, I guess? That's an awful way to put you on the spot for that, but we're all good, eh? All right. So how about a value? Yeah, I'll get to that, yeah. What was it, 5,000, was it? Three?
Council's given $3,000 per year from 2019 to 2022 to the Charlotte County Hospital Foundation, Inc.
So I hear 3,000. Do I hear 32? No. No, I'm not doing that. So how's everyone feel about that donation? Yeah, Councilor Cornish.
Yes. The way things are going, the way prices are going up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I think we should bounce that up to $5,000 because hopefully we're not have to use any of that facilities for anything, but we certainly need, I think we need to put more than 3,000 into it. I think we should bounce it to 5.
So something was going through my mind too. We were doing the 3,000 as a town of St. Stephen. We are a larger district now, but I mean, I still would like to get a read on our treasurer's forehead and see if he's stressing about another couple thousand. But all right. So how about 5?
We do 5 and then offer a challenge, use that challenge form and challenge the other municipalities?
It was just, you just did it.
We just did it now.
Yeah.
Hold on, I put my mic on. Yes, I challenge the other to match $5,000 the municipal district of St. Stephen is putting forward. There you go.
Thank you, Councilor Househup, and thank you, because I'm glad you brought that up. Go through.
Mover, seconder, and vote on the expenditure of the funds, please.
Okay. Okay, so Councilor Harding, Councilor Cornish, that we move forward with the raising from, well, no, a $5,000 donation to the Charlotte County Hospital Foundation Radiothon. Yeah. Good move, folks. Thanks you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, and the Charlotte County Hospital Foundation thanks you. And the Charlotte County people thank you. All right. Mover and seconder to accept the council reports? Oh.
Was that all we got for correspondence? Because I had a phone call from a citizen saying that she submitted a letter with regards to Terry Fox. And nothing was ever brought up about it. I went through the minutes there, I didn't see it.
Yeah, that was first recognition, but I'd never received a letter.
No, she sent it, she sent it to you and the council, and I never seen it.
I never saw it.
No, I did. I'm just looking at the clerks back here, and they're saying that it did come in.
There was a letter
Yeah.
that came in with her request for the proclamation for the last council.
Oh, which we did.
You did the proclamation, but the letter didn't go to the agenda, nor did it go this month. And she did speak to me and ask if council wanted to put it on the agenda this month.
Okay, but, all right, so they want the letter on the agenda, just not the proclamation? No.
The proclamation was done last
Okay.
month. She just asked whether the letter had been acknowledged.
Okay, so we should make sure we do that. Okay, thank you, Councilor Eastman. Yep.
Do it next month.
Yep. Okay, so now, did I have a mover and seconder for the, accept the reports?
Also move.
Councilor Eastman, Councilor Harding, any more questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, oh, there's the big one. Well, before we close, I would like to thank the town, or the municipal district of St. Stephen for putting that post out there for our local Ross McDougall for making the training camp at Chicago Blackhawks. So congratulations to Ross McDougall and his family, and I'm looking forward to it. He comes home on the holidays and he comes out and plays hockey with us old fellows there every time he comes home. He brings his dad out, so maybe I had a little bit of part to play for helping them get up to the Blackhawks level. You know, I'm probably the biggest pylon out there, but hey, everyone's got to do their part. So anyway, big congratulations. It's nice to see another one, and I don't know, maybe you might convince me that Bruins hat off. We'll see. All right, motion to close the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, then, that's actually what I meant, but why did I read that? Because it's right there. It's literally right in front of me. Anyway.
Unless you have something close.
No. Yeah, it does. Yeah, so I just read the next thing. So anyway, mover second to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilor Harding. Councilor Cornish. All those in favor? Motion